Village Market, located at 95 Main Street, Fairfield, is your small-town, fully stocked grocery store with that big store feel. Carrying quality vegetables, fruits, meats, deli items, and surefine products. They even have some inviting desserts. On your lunch break, stop by and grab one of the prepared, ready-to-go meals. Village Market's knowledgeable and courteous staff makes your visit an enjoyable experience. Visit them on Facebook and online at villagemarketfairfield.com. Open 7 days a week, the Village Market. We've got your groceries and more.
Are you thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, but you don't know where to start? Have you searched for a realtor who will be nearby when they are needed, who will answer your calls and emails, who will go the extra mile to ensure your every need is met, who will help you with sourcing and supplying contractors while negotiating the best deal possible? Do you need a realtor who does not believe in high-pressure sales tactics or other gimmicks? Then you need me. My name is Steve Roy, and I offer a full-service professional sales and customized marketing package for my clients. I am helping clients with buying, selling, and investing. I will build a custom plan to fit your needs. I will work closely with you to ensure that you achieve your goals. My services include not only an analysis of your local market and correct pricing, but I will also help you to prepare your home for sale and make it look as desirable as possible to buyers by providing expert advice, using professional quality photographs, and compelling descriptions. Let me help you minimize cost and maximize your profits. Call me today, 207-649-8522.
Welcome everybody. We have public access channel with us this evening. It's going to record our meeting. So don't swear. First thing I'd like to do is have the committees gather and pick a chair for each committee tonight and set a date for your first meeting so that we will know where everything is at, and only the chair will report on your meeting at the next meeting. So if you could all gather together.
Just some format on that though. It really ought to be a building committee member that is the chair of the subcommittee, because we do have some people that aren't on the building committee that are part of the subcommittee, and that's wonderful, but we will want a subcommittee report at our future meeting, so it really ought to be somebody who's going to be coming to the building committee. I'll give you that caveat before you go out and do that. And what we'd like is a chair's name and the date of the first meeting so that we can get it in record. And I think, although I did get one correction tonight, every time I got a correction for the list of subcommittees that I put out, I changed it, so if you took one of the agendas from over there, or the last one I sent out, I think is accurate, other than the one change I got when I got here tonight. So, we take the Steve Blatt is going to be here. He thought he'd be about a half hour late. I said, well, we got an exercise for subcommittees. It's going to take a little bit anyway. So why don't you just find yourself a spot? I don't know who wants to say, who wants to take that corner and who wants to take that corner, but let's just take a few minutes and get that done.
We've got a lot of elementary right over here.
Yep, performing arts.
Okay, we get back at it. We need the name of the chair for each committee and the date of your first meeting. And we'll start with Performing Arts.
That's me, Jen McCowan, and our first meeting is going to be the evening of the 31st. At 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, yeah.
Elementary.
I'm going to be the chair, and our first meeting is going to be February 2nd at 2:30 at the elementary school. We'll be in our second grade conference, our second level conference room.
2:30?
Yes.
Thank you.
Construction management.
Construction, I'm chairing. Construction management did not set, even though I told everybody to do this, we did not set a date because we really can't meet until we get BGS approval. And one of the things that Steve, I said this earlier, Steve Blatt's gonna do tonight is update us on where that application is. You have to go down for pre-approval hearing, then you have to go for final approval, so it's gonna take a while to get through BGS. There's no sense in us meeting until we know we're gonna be able to get construction manager. But so we didn't even set a first date, because we don't know when that's gonna be, but I am gonna be chair.
High school.
I am the chair. We're gonna meet next Thursday, the 2nd, at 6 o'clock.
Publicity?
Well, since it was just me and Eric on the committee right now, from the building committee, since he didn't come to our meeting, he's chairman of the publicity. No,
It works out pretty well.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good. I voted and it was pretty good in the end. But, no, I'll be glad to do that, so I'll be chairperson of the publicity.
Actually, just to give credit where credit's due, Ray was the one that actually got Public Access Channel to a meeting with myself and him. And we went through what they could offer for us, and so, what did we finally agree on per episode?
It's actually $150 per episode for taping.
And they're gonna show it three
Three
times,
times.
3 days, twice daily.
But they're also they're gonna give us a link so that at any time, anybody can link to the video, so anybody can watch it at any time on their laptop. So we haven't got that done yet, but we'll do that. We were waiting for the first communication, so there'll be a link to the video so anybody can watch it at any time.
And they also have it on YouTube, so it's archived. So if somebody, even 2 months from now, wants to come back and look at the very first meeting, which is this one that's being taped, they'll be able to do that.
No meeting date yet because we'll just set a time in the future that we can.
Okay, takes care of the committees. Program options and impact on funding.
I think that item is really going to require
Steve.
Steve, and I think everything else that we have on this, other than future agenda items.
We need him.
There he is. Perfect timing.
Right on time.
What is next Thursday's date? Second. That's what we need, right, Jeff?
Yep.
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock.
It is ready, it wasn't when I came.
While we're waiting for Steve to get set up, we have a new member of our committee, which is Tricia West. She's the council chair, but I don't know, chairman, council member, but I don't know.
Not the chair.
I don't know what district you're with.
No, what?
What district you?
District 1.
One?
Yep. Augusta Road, China Road.
Okay.
2:30 on the second.
No. Yeah, no.
Jen, where's your meeting taking place?
It's normally some place with, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we did a little exercise and brought our subcommittees together, and they all decided who the chair was gonna be, and when the first meeting is gonna be, so we have that for the record. And we also mentioned that we're under public access television for the rest of our meetings.
So no swearing.
And so we're at agenda item number 3, Steve, which is the program options and impact on funding.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm here. I have spent the last several weeks studying the school and the program and the budget, because I need to know from this committee what the scope of our project should be, because the more we do, the more it costs. So I think it's important for us to acknowledge that we'd probably like to have the best of everything, but we probably can't afford it. That's not my call, that's your call, and it's the people's call in a vote. So I would like to present to you how I've been looking at it, what I've been looking at, after having met with Chad last year about how the high school works, where things are in the high school, and how much space in the high school could have different uses if the 7th and 8th come. I can go through that with you, and I have some handouts, but I'm not gonna give them to you till later, because then you won't listen to me.
The teachers sitting around the table understand what you just said.
Okay, I'll put a few boards up here so that you will begin to recognize from the air what we deal with when we're planning for the school. This is that's actually a site plan of the school superimposed on a Google map. So that's very accurate. We are sitting in here, and this is the new, it's no longer new, the math science edition, in the fields, and the buses, and right over there is the junior high school. So, I take this into account when I look at the flow of things in the school and where would be a good place to locate 7, 8 sort of community, and also where would be a good place to locate the Performing Arts Center. But I have to admit that I started sketching, but you don't want to see that yet. So this is, in general, and only in very general, how the school is zoned now. The entrance, the commons, the office, the kitchen, the cafeteria, the gym. The gym is the heart of the school architecturally. The half gym. So in general, there is sort of the liberal arts wing, which is social studies and English and foreign language and special ed. And there are things elsewhere, but in general, that's where the classes are. The library is here, and this is where science and math is. So, performing arts, art, music. So, when I look at the program that you have here and what you offer to your students, we've got some pretty good zones, and one of the things I want to do in this project is not only accommodate the 7th and 8th, but give them the opportunity to both be all together on their own and also to venture out into the school and take advantage of more program offering. There are some things we'll miss. We're going to put more students taking phys ed in these 2 spaces than there are now. We're going to put more students in the library. We're going to put more students here. So without redoing the entire high school, we're going to have to work with the principals and the administration to administer and schedule things so that they flow. But also, there are functions and function spaces in this building now that aren't quite tuned, could be better, that have the ability to accommodate more students. We may be able to offer better special services to needy students. If we can afford a wonderful performing arts center, that part of the curriculum will just boom, will just go wonderful. In this general zone, math and science, language, social studies, sort of socializing in here. I think the library is still considered both academic and socializing, and arts and performing arts. This is the school sort of unadorned. The greenish yellow is circulation. see that there are no dead ends in your school. All corridors lead out, which is good. You actually have a lot of corridor for a school this size. And one of the reasons is because you encapsulate your gym with corridors. So had your gym been on the edge, this corridor would have served it. And now you have all of this corridor. Now that's not a negative, that's just a comment. I find your school very easy to navigate. There are no funny angles except this, and that doesn't matter. And it's, you know, it's nice that you see light at the end of a corridor, and that you know that there are general areas where to be, and that you get good service here, and it gets more particular as you go in direction. Then we, after my meetings with Chad, and was Mr. Mishu was here from middle school, and Kyle was there too.
We did a step one over at the elementary.
Right, but I think you joined us in some of these meetings. These are the areas that we would tend to look at in terms of adjusting what goes on in the existing facility as we develop additions to the school. So from my pulling it out of Chad, we understood that when 7 and 8 come here, we will need to tweak the office to deal with more staff unless we decide that there should be a separate small administrative office and a separate entrance for the 7th and 8th graders. That's a program issue. So if we come to the conclusion that the 7th and 8th should get off the buses and go to another door instead of this door, then we say, well, at that other door, is there a supervisor? Is there a principal? Do we want to split the secretaries? I want to tell you that your entire enrollment isn't large enough to justify 2 offices. So that would not be an economy, but it might be a local preference. You might say we'd rather do it that way. Now, in lots of schools, from a half hour before the start of classes till a half hour after, several doors in the school are open, and an eye is kept on them. And after that, only one door is kept open, and that's security. So you could just have the middle school principal at a small station at a separate entrance. And I mention that because it's been mentioned to me several times. Could we have a separate entrance for 7-8? I'm gonna, some of this stuff I don't think about so much that I don't want to think that you know it because I've taken it for granted. In my opinion, we should not take the 7th and 8th grade and just integrate it into everything and have a classroom here and a classroom there. I think the middle school age kids need to have community. They need to be together. They're going to feel intimidated. Every year, the 7th graders are going to feel intimidated for a few months. They just are. And so I think they need to be able to come together. And I think if we do that, then we give them the opportunity to both form a team and then also venture out and get to understand the entire education experience of high school. So these are areas that I have been looking at for modification. And in my program that I'm going to show you, which is words and numbers, and I'm going to pass it out to you later, I acknowledge that these areas need renovation and therefore money. Okay, so the office. This is going to be up to discussion, and we will bring several proposals to you after I vet them among people who use them every day. Chad's moved into this office. You still there? Yep. But that was intended to be a conference room, and it has access to the court. I think it's really terrific strategically that Chad is accessible. And he's not just behind here waiting to give a student trouble. So here's the office. This is some social studies or something. I didn't quite get that, but these rooms here, most of these I looked at, and Chad agreed that those could be looked at perhaps for different use. This is just beyond the bathrooms.
The first one is an office for our Melmac J&D person.
Yeah.
The next one is our academic support lab.
Okay, good. So we looked at this and said that may be an important space. We looked at guidance and came to the conclusion that this really is a very nice guidance suite. I've designed a lot of them. And there's a little alcove right here for students to wait. If we just put a wall and a door, we'd have one more guidance office, and it has a window in the courtyard. This is life skills, and we're going to look at expanding life skills so that not only is it better, but that it can handle students from 7 through 12. And when life skills studios, multiple, are in close proximity, the staff really benefits from that by coverage and by discussion. This is the room we're in, and we're going to need, and we're finding this everywhere in the state, a room for students who are behaviorally disruptive to other spaces. And it's basically, it's not what we call life skills. Life skills is multi-handicap, but it's students who are disrupting and not able to function properly, not intellectually, not cognitively, but emotionally in a classroom. So we've pegged this room to say maybe that would happen. We know that we're going to need locker rooms and that the existing high school locker rooms are not going to be terribly friendly for 7th and 8th graders. So we're looking at an option to take the current fitness room, move some of this to the current stage, and rework this as a 7th and 8th grade locker room. What we also know is that locker rooms in middle schools are not used as locker rooms. They're changing rooms at best. I have not found in high schools, just a few in high schools, but in no middle schools, is anybody using the showers. Not at all. They're just not. If you are, let me know and I'll change it, but it would be very unusual. So, if you have team sports, and the middle school plays in team sports, maybe, but we'll need to figure that out and look at scheduling and how that would work. This is the technology, and this is the library. Your library is very slightly oversized per square foot for the high school. When we add 7th and 8th, it's a little bit undersized. We have a, this is study technology, computer. We have
It's our tech guy.
that's
He's
his
in that big
headquarters?
room because there was nothing else in there.
Okay.
So,
That was intended to be the computer part of the library. When we take over the room next to art, in order to create a 7th and 8th art studio, which I think you should do, that may want to become more intensively used for technology and applications. So, I look at something like this and I say, we've got life skills established, maybe we should intensify it here. We've got some special ed uses, maybe we should make them work. Nice thing about your special ed, you didn't put it out in left field. It's not down the end of the back corridor. It's pretty vitally located, which is good. The library, because it has adjacencies with a breakthrough and a couple of steps, we may be able to relocate this. That's currently a resource room. So, and then expand the library a bit and give the 7th and 8th, perhaps, their own area for their own collection, which is somewhat different. And this area, which is currently performing arts, is well located for public access. In fact, when it was designed, this was supposed to be the access to the performing arts. I don't think it's used. I think there's storage in
Used to be.
It's now useless, and then.
It is used, oh, good. Things change. And so I would,
She's just saying, don't give her ideas about using it for.
No, it was originally storage.
Yes, it
when I
was.
came here. I unstoraged it.
so, in general, when I look at this, I say, you know, this would be a really good area for performing arts storage. It's right there, it's apparent to the public coming in. There is an entrance, there is public bathrooms. You could actually lock off the rest of the school, or you could lock it off here and use the current commons for concessions. So there's a lot saying that that becomes your performing arts and your fine arts wing. That's a very nice idea. You've got that wing, you've got science and math, and stuff like that. And conversely, I've been looking at your site plan and saying, we don't want to reconfigure the entire campus. So should we in fact look at 7 and 8 down here, where the parking is, and see if that's a good place, and could they then enter right off of the bus here? So that's a little skip ahead. But I wanted to show you that in terms of programming, I need to update this with Chad, and I'd like to do that soon, but to make sure that I understand exactly where rooms are being used, where they're overused, should we switch if we've got different enrollment in classes. So that's what I'm starting to look at. Now, this is the short form of program of spaces. And I say it's short because we have a longer form that is, it's hard to understand, but it talks about every single room in the school, and how large it is, and how it's used, and it lets you see clearly how efficient you're being with your square footage. Says this is how much net square footage we have for certain rooms, this is how much square footage is given to corridors, this is how much is given to structure, all that stuff, and it lets you know what's called your net to gross ratio. You figure out how efficient you are and whether you are too inefficient. So what I'm proposing as sort of a recipe for a project is, we know that we would need 9 graded classrooms for 7 and 8. And if any of this has changed since I talked to you before we started this committee, let me know now or let me know later, but please let me know. 9 classrooms. I think it was 4 7th and 5 8th. But I will check that with you. We need toilets. I am a very strong advocate of one-holers, that you don't go into a gang bathroom at middle school age. I've found there's been a lot of intimidation, and not less, more every year, and a lot of socializing, and a lot of working out differences. And so if you have a one-holder, you go in and you lock the door like you do at home, and you go to the bathroom and you leave. And when you do that, the law allows you to make half, at least half, handicapped accessible. And they are more than twice as large as a non-handicapped bathroom. So you can do 5 of them at ADA regs and 4 not. And usually, as a rule, we put 1 per classroom. Usually they're in the corridor, very close to the classroom. So there's no excuse to be gone for 10 minutes to relieve oneself. They're right there. And it's pretty, it keeps kids close to where they should be. We need a resource room, and my notes say that the resource room should be a full-size classroom. We question that because most of them that we've been doing lately are not. We try to furnish them more explicitly, and we have found that if we can do a resource room and make a little niche we call a testing area, so that it can be a one-on-one person, and they don't have to be large, they can be 30 feet. It's a little room where you can go, and what happens frequently in the resource room is that there's a whole bunch of different things going on with smaller groups, and so we try to accommodate that. So, the room would be about half the size of this, but our resource rooms frequently aren't just a rectangle, they frequently have a bend in them, so people can get away from people, and ed techs and teachers can keep an eye from certain points. So we'll get into that later. So we downsized your resource room. We can upsize it if we need to. We put in a multi-purpose classroom, and that would be foreign language, an extra classroom, sort of, you always should have a sort of a rentable space that you can assign a use to. So we're gonna give you an extra classroom and then a STEM lab. And one of the questions will be, will the STEM lab actually be a STEAM lab with art in it? And, or will you go over to the arts area for the 7th and 8th graders? And the opportunity you have if you put two art rooms together is that you can make them more specific. One of them can be digital art, and one of them can be dirty art, and people can go in their classes to either one. So the multi-purpose room is absolutely multi. And my question is the STEM lab also going to be the 7th and 8th grade science lab? Or is that going to be one of the 9 classrooms? So those are the things we need to work out. And you don't need to all be involved in that. You can if you want. I'm very happy to have input. But starting in about 2 weeks, I'm going to be moving into the high school and spending time working with groups of teachers and the administrators and trying to get these things worked out that I can bring back to you and say, this is what I'm hearing. It is up to you as a committee to say, well, I know you've heard that, but I don't think we're comfortable with that and stuff like that. Okay? You are the people that help me design the school, but I need input to come and bring you options.
And you mean, just to clarify, when you say moving in?
I'm just going to be up here a lot.
Yeah, well, no, I know, obviously you're not moving in, but you mean going over to the junior high and talking to 7th and 8th grade
Absolutely.
teachers?
Okay, because I'm sure the 7th grade teachers and 8th grade teachers are saying, wow, I'm really not going to have very much space. And that's what I want to make sure you are comfortable with, that you have that opportunity. One of the things I've been very concerned with is, can we afford a performing arts center? And if we can't, we really lose a major amenity that you have at the junior high school, which you don't have here. So I think that's very important, but it's multi-million dollars to do that. And I'm going to show it to you in just a minute. What I put here is new space, net new space. It's 10,000 square foot net, and by the time you run corridors and thicknesses of walls and the janitor's closet and that kind of stuff, you actually use up more than that usually, but I'm going to make sure I can do it at 1.3 instead of 1.4. So that's 13,000 square feet of new space, and we're going to have an auditorium is going to be either tight at 6,500, which won't accommodate 600 students, or a little better at 8,000, which will accommodate 600 students. So, do a performing arts center, quick aside, you have to build the stage anyway. And it's not the size of the stage, it's the equipment on the stage. And when you build seats, you actually start to put $1 per seat on it. So you can be careful. We're doing a new performing arts center in Cumberland for Greeley High School. We just had a building committee meeting tonight, that's why I'm a little late. They didn't know if they wanted to build one for 500 seats. And they had over 600 kids in school. 500 seats or 700 seats, so you could sit the student body plus all the faculty, or somewhere in between. And we laid it out to them clearly that it's money. It's really only money. You're going to spend the same amount of money on the stage and the equipment and the lighting and the audiovisual and the backstage spaces. You really are. So it's really the number of seats. So we really should think about that carefully. Do we have a performing arts center subcommittee?
Yes.
We did.
That's great. Well, that'd be a lousy one, I can promise you. Okay, so there's that. So that says
Work's
that
cut out for
units
you,
from,
Jen. I said Jen's work's cut out for her.
this is going to be 13, it's either going to be 19,500 or 21,000. It's going to be right around 20,000 square feet of new space, okay? That's what you're going to probably need. We may need more. I may be so clever as to be able to do this for 12,500 square feet. But we shouldn't cut down on these, and my important thing to learn in the next couple of weeks is, what did I not get? What do we really need to get? So when we put a proposal down for a series of spaces that are specifically for 7th and 8th grade, the high school is not welcome there. But the high school has to welcome 7 and 8 out into the rest of the building. It's a neighborhood. We gotta make sure that we have a comprehensive village there, and then you can go downtown when you need to. We're also gonna need to, this is a little specific, I hope you'll forgive me. If we do put the Performing Arts Center here, then we're gonna wanna redo what you have, so it's more appropriate to the Performing Arts Center. We can build a smaller house, still gonna have a good stage, but virtually all the backstage stuff could be renovated here, which will give you a terrific Performing Arts Center at a less cost. Then, these are the spaces I pointed out to you here. And though everyone is not here, you'll see that I've got locker rooms, which need renovation. I've got fitness on the stage. I've got life skills, which is up here. I've got administration, which needs a little bit of tweaking. I've got the library, which needs some tweaking. And I've got behavioral. Oops, I missed art. I've got art, and I've got a behavioral classroom. Now, we're going to want to really study this with your special ed people about how they would like to do that. Do you send people out of district for day program now?
Not very often,
Not very often.
no,
Good. So that would be great if you don't have to, because we have a facility.
absolutely.
Good.
Excuse me, does the middle school need their own gymnasium?
Well, that's a great question. I keep putting that out, and I've been talking to Eric for a couple of years about this, and he says, well, I don't know how that's gonna go. That's gonna be your decision. It's purely money. A new gymnasium, or when we designed this, we put the structure in so that we could,
That's what I was thinking.
Add on.
Expanding,
so that's gonna be a question. This is 3,000 square feet, if you wanted to do that. The problem is that it's not wide enough for bleachers. You could put the other half court here, and you'd have a practice court. But you wouldn't have a competition court. There's another thing you could do, is that if we really, really needed storage more than court space, much less expensively, you could add something off this side that would have virtually an unfinished, barely heated space that you could bring all of your equipment into. Equipment is, one of the problems with sports facilities is that if you don't build enough equipment, it stays out on the floor, and the floor doesn't get as well used. You do, because you have a major basketball program, but some people don't.
Remember, our junior high now plays at the elementary school because of the condition of the gym, and that seems to work out pretty well.
Is that a regulation court?
It's 4 feet short, it's 80 feet long.
Well, aren't 7th and 8th graders short?
Some, they play their games here, but they don't practice there, so
They
that's,
practice at the school?
they practice at the junior high. So without that gym, you're now gonna put a lot more pressure on our facility, which is currently used for Parks and Rec.
But you still have the existing half gym.
Can't practice.
I can't practice. But that's being used for wrestling and cheering, and it would, if something happened, whatever happens to the junior high, if that closes down and that gym is not usable, it would put a lot of pressure on the gyms that we have in town.
Because you have elementary students that are going to the junior high to have practices because they can't use their own elementary gym because 7th and 8th grade and stuff are playing games at the elementary school.
Does that happen right after school, before dinner? Is that
Or-
when it happens?
Parks and Rec is 4 to 9,
4 to 9.
so when they're not able to use the gym at the elementary school because of the game, then they're over at the junior high practicing.
Okay, good, you gotta help me with that, that's stuff that I wasn't aware of, and so that's programmatic. All of this can be done. If we added on to this, I think you could have pretty good practices in gyms there. Where we put wrestling, another question.
Right. Wrestling and cheering would then get kicked out, and where does that go?
Right, and what we ought to remember is that we will have a performing arts center that has a stage which is the size, absolutely fine for wrestling, in fact, the floor is.
Jan, you're being televised.
The smell of sweat.
The other thing you touched on a little bit was storage. I mean, we know performing arts got a storage issue, but if you're taking the stage, the old stage, and that's currently being used for storage, and then also all the junior high athletic storage that's required. I don't know, I'm sure there's other storage, because we seem to be lacking a lot of it. I don't know how much is built into it, but.
Okay, well, there will be classroom storage built in,
Right.
several rooms worth, but not.
I see a lot of athletic storage that we're taking away for other uses, and
Are you talking about athletic storage for team stuff?
team stuff off-season.
I have become very convinced that a freestanding outside building is by far the least expensive, doesn't have to be heated. and-
Drama has their own garage bay,
Exactly.
maintenance has their own garage bay, athletics has their own garage bay. It's a freestanding, separate building, 4 bays, I believe it is. Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, it's either 3 or 4 bays.
It's not, actually, I'm not so sure it's not ideal, because why should you spend $200 a foot on storage inside your walls?
Right.
When you don't need to heat it?
4 or
and-
5 bay garage, essentially.
Yeah.
I would agree. Yep.
Yeah, another thing about storage too is that, you know, it doesn't need to meet all of the codes,
Right.
accessible. It doesn't even have to be sprinkled, honestly, because there's no life safety issue. So it's far less expensive to do. Whereas if you add it to the building, you need to make it consistent with the building.
Well, then that surely makes sense to use what is within the building, best use of that, fix how we do that.
Okay, I'm gonna get my pad and take a few notes of these things that you people are already demanding. Okay, so can you go through that? Are we on a 7:30 deadline?
Yep.
Okay. Good, okay, so, do you wanna deal with, I still need some time to go through budgets, but do you wanna deal with, the gym first?
We gotta deal with it sometime.
Okay. Ron, you better run this one. What do you think? It's purely money. Really, we know where to put it, it's prepared for, there's, the site under it is basically ready to build on. It's an inexpensive construction, but it's not free.
What issues are we talking?
It's about 3,000
No,
square.
we're talking about the new gymnasium?
No, it would be adding to the half gym, but then we'd have to say, where are we gonna put everybody else who's now using the half gym? What are the uses of the half gym now?
Winter season, wrestling, cheering, youth wrestling, youth cheering. So every day it's used pretty much from 2 o'clock till 8-ish.
Okay,
And then sometimes youth wrestling, youth cheering may, or actually I think it's more youth cheering gets sent to the cafeteria.
youth means pre-high school?
Right,
Okay.
right, program.
Okay,
Yeah,
Now-
they
And
get
then the
sent.
junior high wrestling program starts in about 3 weeks, and they access the Ox Gym as well for practice and home meets, because our $10,000 mats are here at the high school, stored in the Ox Gym. So there's another use. which opens up the junior high gymnasium for your rec basketball, which is typically over at that point. But it's used like a rec center, in my opinion, with travel basketball, boys and girls.
So, one of the things we might want to consider, and I haven't given it enough thought yet, is once I get together with the performing arts group and we find out to what extent we want to design and equip a performing arts center, then how much additional space will we need in the current performing arts center and music space? For instance, is the existing band room good? Or should we take the seats out of the existing house and put the band room there? And that kind of stuff. That's not expensive stuff. And would that by any chance free up a room? For instance, what if the stage, which that's about the smallest stage I've run into yet, but if that stage could become, have another use. Just where the curtain is, wall it off, give it another use. Just say it's available. Part of my programming study run up here will be, what are the literal dimensions that we need for a wrestling program? What are the literal dimensions we need for cheerleading? I'll also be looking into to see is, can we modify our schedule? The real question is, could that gym, the Fox gym during the day be used for 7 and 8 phys ed? Is it absolutely true that you need a court-sized room for phys ed? How much of phys ed is court play?
The large chunk of it,
Okay.
with the exception of being able to go outside, you know,
And
obviously
what about-
in fall, spring.
What about the gym? Is that used for phys ed continually during the day?
Our gym is used out of 8 blocks, I think 7
For phys ed?
for phys ed.
Okay. So it seems to me that we may need to bite the bullet and talk about this. And and the question then would be, by the way, what is the bleacher capacity of the junior high gym? Can you have
Well, we don't
Parents
hold meets at the junior high gym,
do you hold basketball games?
no.
Do you have bleacher space at the elementary schools?
So I would say, based on the attendance that comes to the elementary school for these junior high games, there's probably 250 would be a capacity. I mean, it's just one side of 4 sets of bleachers.
But you don't need stadium where the only things work?
Yep.
Okay. So the question then would be, if we consider that we have this gym, our big gym, our middle gym, and we have our Ox gym, and if we made that a court size for phys ed and for other kinds of sports and practice, and still did games, junior high school games at the elementary school, would that fill it? Would that fill our need?
Well, I don't want to get too far ahead, but before you went there, could your competition games for the 7th and 8th grade in the high school still occur in your competition gym? I mean, if that was a full-size gym, your practices that would have to occur while a competition, let's say 7th and 8th grade is playing a junior high basketball game.
That's a great point.
Could the high school be using the other gym for their practicing? And let this K-6 structure we're gonna have at the elementary school be the pure Parks and Rec program up through grade 6.
I think that's terrific. That's getting a lot of use out of a very expensive room, your gym.
But I'm saying that without truly knowing what the scheduling is like for an athletic director to pull that stuff off. I mean, I want that to.
I think it's something we could explore, and obviously we're not gonna solve that tonight, because it still creates, what do we do with cheerleading practice? Wrestling could, I think, easily go in the cafeteria, because they don't need the height, but cheerleaders need the height.
And
I mean, if you're gonna throw up a girl in this room, you're gonna hit the ceiling pretty quick.
that's why I was thinking about perhaps the existing stage.
I don't know if it's good shared space, but if they're using half gym now, for both of those things at different times, if it was full size, would a curtain dividing those two work? So they can still use the gym at the same time. I don't know if it's good shared space.
Yes, but we still have the basketball need in the same space too. So
You do
cheering
it
and
the same
wrestling,
season,
yes, but
yeah.
it's all the same season.
So you,
Monday night, I had to answer every single one. Carrying back the message.
Yeah, like, I think there's gonna be a lot of conversation about that, really studying how is that gonna be.
Well, I think we need the other half regardless. The question is that not even gonna be enough problems today?
Okay, well, you can do the other half, you can also do the other half plus. And if you were to do that, that's probably where you'd put a lot of your athletic storage. Because if you're going to do a lot of basketball practice, both high school and junior high school in the small gym, you're not gonna wanna have equipment stored, expensive wrestling units stored there and stuff like that.
As far as the in-season equipment, anyway.
Okay, so there's one, the gym.
I'm assuming, but I want to clarify that the proposal of that auxiliary gym was to be expanded. You really only have one direction you can go, or can you make it wider at the same time?
It's gonna be very expensive to make it wider.
Because that would not allow you to put bleachers in there unless you went wider.
Well, the other thing is that we have a busway that goes right there.
Right.
Roofing structure probably works too.
Just did the wide enough, looking ahead.
There's, it's pretty close, yes? See these yellow things? It's pretty close to that one. And it would not be economical to just expand it 6 feet. You would say, why are we doing it? So, we would have to figure it out.
So we can't have, one is obviously a, you should know that, so we can't have a full-size gym there, it's not gonna happen.
No, you'll have a full-size court.
A full-size court, but we won't be able to have bleachers and have regulation games on that floor.
Yeah, you won't have games that have,
Bleachers.
Do you have to have bleachers on either side of the court? Yeah.
There's not,
Because like, why can't you just have
Could you
bleachers
put
on the
bleachers
end?
here?
I know that's like
At the
weird.
end,
Extend this out a little
down,
bit
but-
and have the bleachers come out.
would you want bleachers under the baskets?
It'd be better than not having bleachers at all.
You ever been to a basketball game at Gardner High School?
a noisy place.
There's a lot of rowdy that goes on that end of the court. That's a good end to finish on.
Well, parents would have to just get along. You've had them together, but I need.
Nothing says that this has to be mid-court. Mid-court could go here, so that you could put bleachers here and bleachers here. So this could go out further than this.
Oh, at the end, yeah.
Instead of going
You
3,000.
could have games, that's better than no. Yes, and you could use it for practices and games.
Jack, you had a question?
I'm probably gonna answer that. I think that adding on the gym, it's absolutely necessary that they be part of the picture. You've got, right now, maybe there'll be fewer teams, I don't know, in 2 years or whatever the date. But as I think it is right now, you've got 4 basketball teams at the junior high school, 2 7th, 2 8. Is that, I'm assuming that's correct?
That's correct.
You've got a wrestling team coming in, probably junior high cheerleaders as well. I'm assuming that program is still intact. And you're losing a gym, so you're losing, not a good gym right now, where they at least can practice. So you're bringing 4 basketball teams, a cheering squad at least, and a wrestling team over. I think that puts a ton of pressure on your big gym, where it's practicing the game. And even though it's not wide enough to play games in, I think the recent suggestion there, by making it deeper or longer, or however you want to use it, where you could put some bleachers at least at the end. So that would raise the prospect that you would be maybe able to not only practice there, but that would take some of the pressure out of the elementary school, where they would have both the place where they could practice and play their game. Would be right there.
Is it expected, should we take into account as a group that there won't be any use of the junior high school gym for rec? Do you think there's a chance they'll tear that building down?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that.
The cord is coming off, it's a horrible.
Yes.
I mean, literally, they have to, you would just, when you pack it in there exclusively, and they have sections of it that we can't use. That,
Okay.
If I could just add to that, I've met with a contractor, we've toured the building,
Which building?
the junior high,
Thank you.
and the contractor believes that is a usable building. We're gonna be meeting on the 2nd of February with the committee that's looking at the junior high facility. I was encouraged as we toured the facility, and contractor pointed out opportunities. So at this point, I think that's still on the table, that still might be a possibility. We estimate it's gonna cost us between $700,000 to $1 million to create a parking lot there just to tear it down. That's a lot of money to spend, so if we can have an alternate use. In fact, I called Eric and asked if he'd be interested in renting space for superintendent's office, he indicated an interest in doing that. So I'm encouraged in thinking that we may be able to repurpose that facility where the town wouldn't own it necessarily, but we could lease space there, so the school department, for example, could lease space, either the gym or classroom space. So anyway, I think that's still a possibility, and hopefully next week we'll have a better sense of what the likelihood that something like that would happen.
The AOS 92, the cyberspace entity called AOS 92, does have about 19 employees. We don't own any teachers, we don't own any buses, we don't own any property, so we rent now. We're renting from Waterville Public Schools, the superintendent's office in Waterville, for $50,000 a year, and we're renting the Winslow superintendent's office at 2,500 square feet for $25,000 a year. So AOS 92 central office is split up into two areas. We would love to get back together again to be one, so that my assistant is right next door to me again, so that we can bump into each other at the coffee machine and say, oh, by the way, I need to tell you about a meeting I just had, as opposed to, oh, that happened a week ago and I forgot to tell you this. It's just something about power of proximity that we were in the same. So we could bring at least that kind of rental that we're paying now. And then we talked about taking the offices that were in, what were the superintendent's offices, and converting those to our alternative, because we're also in Waterville paying rent for an alternative school space, and in Winslow, we're buying slots in that alternative space. And so the Winslow office could be, if we developed it as such, an alternative school as well.
If that idea were carried forward, please don't throw tomatoes. Would you continue to use the auditorium as your theater?
It would certainly be available. I don't know if it would be suitable for the type of performing arts center that folks here are thinking of. But it's not going away. It'll still be there for public use. Assuming the contractor and we're able to work something out and convey the building to a third party that would actually run it.
So Steve, would it be cheap, if that were the case, would it be cheaper for the schools to put renovation money into it with some arrangement with this developer, that we get to use that space? As opposed to building brand new?
It would. It would. Now, the question then would be, instead of having an in-house performing arts center, which is a teaching space, which the school owns, and students are there a lot, and the band and the chorus, and I think they're actually going to create curriculum to teach drama as a subject, which is unusual.
we have that.
It's terrific, but we need a theater. So the question then would be, how much access do you have if it's over in that building? Do kids walk back and forth, the students walk back and forth, or is there staff over there permanently? Is it an auditorium that the district basically reserves via rent? Then we'd have to think about, if we want to upgrade it, how much money do we want to invest in leased property? And it is not handicap accessible.
about that option.
I just can't imagine a third entity that would go into that facility, knowing the work that needs to be done to that facility to bring it upgrade, and to say that all of a sudden now, the reason why we directed the building committee to do this is because infrastructure-wise, we can't. If we're just renting out the space, and we have to rent it out at such a rate that eventually that third entity has to put money into it for upkeep. And if they don't do it, then, you know, at some point in time, would they want to get out of the situation? There'd have to be so many logistics of that whole thing worked out so that we could have that space available. And then what's their responsibility for safety and keeping the whole place, you know, updated and stuff? There's a lot to think about in that particular thing. It seems overwhelming that, and this is the first time I hear that the junior high has a potential use by a third party. And, you know, obviously you have to go through the figures to figure out what that, you know, it is kind of surprising.
Well, it was to me. The developer actually does this throughout the state. When we meet next week, he's gonna show the committee various projects that he's done. He did the Gilman Street School, for example, and it's my understanding they carved out the gym, you know, for public use. So when he walked through the building, he saw something that I think the rest of us didn't see. And it actually surprised me, because when we went to leave, he looked at me and he said, "Mike, you can't tear this building down." He says it's still got a lot of, you know, good uses in it, and it could be, you know, used for public space. But he talked about a nonprofit basically running it. And he said that that would be something that he might do.
I'm all for saving buildings, but Shelley and I have tried to save that building for a while. But you know what, schools are used tough. Schools don't relax, buildings aren't relaxed at all. They're very, very hard to use.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to point from the administrative perspective, watch out how much time consumption you're gonna have communicating with a third party, negotiating, having disputes, and such as that. When you wanna make a particular use, change the use, rather than it being just under your control. You just ask the principal, you ask the superintendent, they say yes, there's not contracts to be negotiated, and all these kinds of miscommunication problems, and no defined chain of authority and stuff like that. If you're bringing a third party into the equation, a nonprofit or some private owner, then everything you do is gonna be subject to a whole lot more discussion, time consumption, and stuff like that.
One thing I do know is I'm glad I'm not on the Performance Arts Committee, because there's going to have to be contact between the town and the committee, and they might possibility have to change total, you know what I mean? Total objectives of what they have halfway, to some extent, when we get all the information we need.
I didn't realize there'd be such overwhelming support for that suggestion when they made it, so.
Well, while I'm all for using the junior high for something, because I agree, I don't think it needs to be torn down, it's such an expense. I think it could be rehab for something. I feel like the high school needs to be built assuming that we're not gonna use that building, because the town's only gonna grow. We want to bring in more families, we want to attract families, so we need to have a full picture here, not sort of and we got something over there too, and like you said, tearing down one wall to push out 6 feet doesn't make sense. Doing this project not to the capacity that we need it to be doesn't make sense. It's gotta be done to what we need it to be. Performing arts, gyms, we need these things. And if we can get more use out of the junior high, great, but I wouldn't wanna count on it at this point. I don't wanna see that building torn down, but the high school needs the work.
I'm not advocating that any of the high school activities be relocated there. But when you're talking about programming, and Parks and Rec came up a number of times about using space, that junior high is a facility that likely Parks and Rec will be using. The developer said if we get to the point where we work out an agreement, we'll already carve out the space that we want in that facility for whatever use, if it's Parks and Rec use or whatever. So we'll be able to carve those out right at the very beginning. But I just threw that out because if you're talking about Parks and Rec and programming, there may be a possibility we may be able to ease things a little bit if Parks and Rec starts using the gym there, for example, or other space there that you don't have to create space for.
That would be terrific, but better prepared for it.
Yeah, what if that steam boiler goes? Then we'll really be in trouble, because we don't have anything over here at high school.
I think the performing arts stays at the high school.
All right, we're getting fairly close. We'd like an update on the application to the Bureau of General Services.
Good, that's why I need to talk to you for the next few minutes about the cost.
Okay.
Because one of the things that Bureau of General Services requires is an approximate scope and cost of the project. Okay? So you're gonna get 5 sheets of budgets attached to this. A, B, C, D, and E are budgets, and they go from the highest to the lowest, and none of them has an expanded gym. So you're gonna have to figure at least $500,000 more on each of these, okay? So the next time I see you, that'll be revised, but I think I got a little bit of a nudge saying, no, we won't need to do it, but let's see what happens. Okay, so, I'm gonna show you something that it's gonna be hard for you to see it and read, but you're gonna get your own copies. I just wanna show you what I've done this, okay? This is A, B, C, D, and E. This is what I have learned to do budget sheets because of my work with you. Concept A has all the square footage for classrooms. It has a new 8,000 square foot performing arts center. It has renovations to the junior senior high school. It has renovations to the elementary school. And it has site work. And that is.
This is on a handout you're gonna get,
Yeah.
right? Would it be helpful for us to have it so that we can look at it, because we can't see that?
You promised you'll listen?
Yeah.
We have 15, but we have many more.
I'll watch Susan, she's the only rebel here.
Okay, will you pass those on your chair? Yeah, I'll take a look. I'm sorry, are there 20 people in this?
Don't have to listen.
25.
25.
The copy isn't that.
Next time might be 30.
So I'm just gonna talk you through while you get it, and then we'll study. The most expensive scheme I have here is $8 million. It has, I think, everything you need except the gym. The gym addition is probably gonna cost at least $500,000. So that's $8.5 million. Okay? Least expensive scheme doesn't build a performing arts center at all. It builds less renovations to the junior senior high school, less renovations to the elementary school, and because you are not building a performing arts center, you don't equip a performing arts center, and that project is just over $5 million. And that's our rating. So I need to begin to understand from you people how much project we want to do, because that project is going to drive a budget. And I don't think we should spend our time, I'm happy to spend my time, but not your time, thinking about a project that doesn't have a chance of getting built. So you people have a much better finger on the pulse of Winslow and what is doable. Yes.
How did you come up with 500,000 for the elementary renovations?
I just grabbed it.
Okay.
Because if, I'd rather be high than low. It's not an awful lot of money, and you couldn't get me to say, don't worry, Steve, we'll fit the 6th grade in and we don't have to do anything to that school. That would be great. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's true. Now, you can spend as much as you want over there, but a lot of the stuff isn't broke. I don't think we should fix that. On the other hand, when I start working with Kyle, we may come up with that we need 700,000. And I'll tell you as soon as I do, but I had to put a placeholder there.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Okay? We can do nothing there and add on to the gym. How's it?
Oh.
That's a nice school. It's quirky, but it's a nice school, and I don't want to add a grade to it and make it a not nice school. That wouldn't be good. Yes.
I just want to sort of put it out here early in the planning that myself personally and most of the junior high folks are rather fearful that we're going to end up being the poor cousins. That,
Who is it?
well, just the junior high, like we have the oldest building and we're having to make this move. And so I'm just really fearful that, I don't think anybody's plan is to just stick us in a corner, but when we start to talk about money and we start to having to cut back, we're gonna have to do an awful lot of giving up, budget-wise. And quite frankly, the junior high is very well versed in giving up, and we're bare bones now, and we would like to think about building our programs instead of just doing the bare bones. And I'm just wanna make sure that we're doing really quality education. I'm not saying pie in the sky, but yes, we need a performing arts center. Yes, we need a full gym. It just makes sense, especially, as you said, we're hoping that people are gonna move into our community.
Absolutely agree. I hope that. I did not reduce the amount of square footage dedicated to new junior high school classrooms in any of these. That's a whole. Okay, I mean, that's a concept. Okay, so if you do this one, and then you move to this one, the only difference here is a slightly smaller performing arts center. So I want you to really think about the number of seats in a performing arts center. Does it need to be 600? You're about 220 now. So have you thought that twice that large would be enough? Would 450 to 500 be enough? Do you want to go to 600?
So
Where did the number 600 come from? Your enrollment in the 712?
So that number you have in the concept B is about $500,000 left for smaller
Correct.
performing arts. How big of an auditorium is that?
500.
That's 500, so it's $100.
500 seats, not 600. It would probably be slightly smaller stage. You'd still be renovating the existing performing arts stage. Okay? It's about $250,000 at least for an extra 100 seats. Everything gets bigger. So that's one thing. Then you might say, well, look, if we could pass 7.475, couldn't we pass 8? But it's important to remember that this is going to go to 8 with a gym. This is going to go to 8.5. Now, if we go all the way back down here, I just want you to know there's no performing arts center. So what you could tell me is, X that out. This one has no performing arts center. And these two are down in the 5.3 million and the 5 million. I do want you to know that the reason that these are higher than what I told you a year ago is because of inflation. I also want you to know that designing the performing arts center that I am doing now in Cumberland, there's $1 million of just equipment in your performing arts center, not building, just equipment. So I've had to up the budget for you for your performing arts center, because you don't want to build a performing arts center and not equipment. That's putting in a movie theater with no projector. So I'm trying to be comprehensive. And in between, just so you read these, look at differences. For instance, you can take another $350,000 out if you just do a little less renovating in the high school and a little less renovating at the elementary school. I don't want to cut you short either. But I wanted to give you a link of these so that you can say to me, Steve, we can't do this. We just can't pass that. And that's, politics, architecture is a little bit of politics. Because we want to design something for you that will get built.
Here's my sense on performing arts center. You've got people like Jen, obviously, that are promoting it because it's performing arts, and that's what she's into, and she wants to bring that to her students, and there's a lot of learning and education that she can have along with her colleagues if we have that facility. You also have other people who want the facility, maybe aren't quite as involved in drama, but they see it as an issue of equity. You look at the surrounding schools, they all have performing arts centers. If we want to attract the best and the brightest to this community, we've got to be competitive in the performing arts. And so even I, who knows nothing about drama, realize the value of having that facility for future enrollments in Winslow. We know that charter schools and other options that are now available is getting to be a very competitive world. We can't be as smug as we used to be and say, we are it. We're the only game in town. They live here, they gotta come to us. We have 57 students in the AOS that have left us and chosen to go somewhere else. Not all Snow Pond Academy, not all means, and not all virtual, but they're spread out. 57 students at even a meager $7,000 per reimbursement is very close to $400,000 in revenue that the AOS 92 has lost. I think it's a necessity.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Where did you come up with the 600 students, Eric? Is that a goal, or is that realistic, that we have 600 students?
I was given that number in my early discussions. I don't know where I got it, but I didn't
That was to
I think it was
fit grade
combining.
7 through 12 together.
Correct.
So that's realistic, 600?
What is, we were talking about this earlier, what is the size of the junior high auditorium?
I mean, does that seat? I think just about 500, Shelley, Jason?
Yeah,
Because when we go and we bring all of our students over, it fills pretty much everything. We're 460.
Does that, but that's not including staff and faculty?
That's usually staff standing up supervising the kids.
Okay, that's
So,
what Greeley
500
decided to do. They also, they did a real close study and said, how much time do we allocate for all student meetings? And they decided they don't, and they won't. And how many times do we need to bring everybody together? They said, not many. And if they do, if they have a big football rally, do it in the gym, because that's where you do a rally.
But I will say this about that, they probably don't because they don't have a facility where it's convenient to do it. Once you have a facility that's convenient to do it, there are a lot of powerful things that can happen, and I know Waterville High School started this years ago, where they have a community meeting 1 day a week. All the students come together and they can announce things, students come and talk in front of the whole student body. It's a very powerful opportunity, and it happens every week. They have a homeroom, alternative homeroom seating arrangement in the, and if you have it, it's kind of like, if you build it, they'll come.
Well, it's also a terrific study hall, no kidding. A lot of the seats we do have a tablet, we can study, and stuff like that. No?
No, I'm not a big fan of study halls.
Really?
Wow. No, because I don't appreciate the facility in many cases, and they're looking, because they're bored, they're looking for something to do, and that usually means issues.
Okay.
And we have the comments for that, where we can put our bigger study halls.
Okay. We've just spent 4 months trying to figure out other uses for the house. You have lectures, you have performances, and you have concerts. What else?
I don't know what, I know this is probably a big factor in the revenue side of things, but having followed my daughter through dance recitals for 4 years of high school, I know that there's pretty big money being paid. It's gotta be being paid at Messalonsky for a large dance studio, that we have 3 dance studios, I think we have right in our community. And that's a sellout over there for 3 nights. So they've gotta be paying Messalonsky some big money to be able to have that happen there. I have no idea what it is, but I think again, if you built, they would come. These local dance studios would come here. That's great.
That's true, but I've also had it expressed to me by some local dance teachers that 600's too small. They wouldn't be able to consider that.
Okay, 1,500 seats, there you go.
I think it's worth investigating with our subcommittee on that, because find out, how many do they see at Messalonsky? What do they collect for fees for that sort of event? Is it worth, the money they're getting for, they would need 300 seats more than what we're talking about. It may not make sense to go to that level. And we'll have to determine what number we need for our educational events that we have, performing arts and such. We'll have to figure out what that number is, but I think our ballpark we're starting with, I think is reasonable to start. We have yet to, obviously discuss what a firm number might look like.
I think we have a lot to think about in the 7:30, so that's our quitting
Is there a
time.
Celtics game tonight? Is that what you're saying?
Huh?
Is there a Celtics game? Is that what you're saying?
Never mentioned that.
I do want to say one thing, is that unfortunately, at the end of the day, at some point in time, is that we have a unique set of circumstances in the town of Winslow right now for various reasons, but budget-wise, you know, the bottom line is $8 million or $8,500,000. At some point in time, with the savings, at the consolidation of teachers, administrators, or whatever has to happen, is that bottom line is at some point in time there's going to be an increase on taxes to the people in the town of Winslow, and then that is the more that you increase taxes, the more you're going to have people that are going to say, you know, they're going to come out and say, this is too much, this is too little. But also we have a lot of people on fixed income, so we have to see them is. It's easy to say that, well, everybody wants $8.5 million, but the bottom line after all the savings and then after all the bonds are up, and then bottom line is what's that's gonna mean to the average taxpayer on a $200,000 house. That's what we think of a lot when we go through the budgets. And it might not be important today, but it's very important to us. So I just wanna make sure that, you know, that is. And when I looked at the $8.5 million, I'll have to get with Mike and look at what that would have. We can estimate as what that would have on the average $200,000 valuation on a house. And then that should be part of what we look at here too, is thinking about the fixed income people.
Also remember the cost aversion that we're going to create by going to a two-building campus.
We have to start doing the math on
Yes.
what is,
The reason I brought this up to you
how much
tonight
savings
is
is going to
that
offset our costs.
Yes.
I would really like to get the CM application into the state, and if we say it's a $4 million project, but it's an $8 million project, they're gonna ask what happened there. So I would like your guidance. I also have to put in a description of the project. It's not just, can we do it? It's a 5-page application. And I've got a lot of it filled out, but I can't do anything concrete until I understand the scope. I'm not pushing it on you. We can wait a few weeks to do the CM, but I would like to have some idea of where your comfort level is.
Well, can you put it in as the max at this point?
We certainly could.
Because you can change it. It's just,
If you can't pay for it, you do change it.
so I mean, so at least we could get it in.
Yeah, as long as
Because you don't wanna go too low and then.
the low limit is 2.5 million. They won't let you do CM if it's not, but we've got to do at least that. So our least expensive, if we and I really want to give you this bare bones, the least expensive, in theory, allows you to bring the junior high school over here, but I don't think you're giving them enough. You're not giving them enough gym space, and you're not giving them performing arts. You could go with a smaller performing arts. You should think about that, really. How important is it to bring the entire student body together? I think it's terrific. I went to Edward Little High School, we didn't even have a gym, leave alone an auditorium. But,
And look what happened.
yeah. I could barely walk.
Since it's 7:30, would it be appropriate through the chair, would it be appropriate through the chair right now to make a motion for the committee to accept a price of $8.5 million right now as what the project would entail at this point, to start designing for an $8.5 million project?
Yeah, I think he's got to have a figure, so we'll go with the highest figure, and then at some point, we'll have to settle down to
Yeah.
the exact number we're gonna do. So I would accept the motion to that
Second.
effect. Is there any other questions on it?
Would the 8.5, do you think, cover the expansion of the gym we talked about today?
Yes, that's why I added 0.5.
Yeah.
I think it will, and the closer I get into it, for instance, it won't take me too long to figure out what Kyle's renovations are gonna cost. And what I'm really doing is programming, and I program to say, we are gonna need X number of classrooms. Now I'm gonna say, where are they gonna go, and can I build them in less than 13,000 square feet? That stuff all gets tied together. And we have all the working drawings for the existing gym, so we'll be able to figure out very closely what it'll cost to expand. Please be aware that inflation exists now, and it didn't for 3 years, and it's back with a vengeance. Okay? So prices aren't coming in low.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for, and a second, for, go with the $8 million figure for the, 8.5, excuse me, for the general services application. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody? There we go.
Ron,
Mr. Chair,
before we adjourn, do you have any charge for the chairs of the subcommittees? What do we need to discuss at our first meeting?
I would say the charge is to come back with minutes from your first meeting and summary of what we discussed and where you see yourself going. I don't think you can do more than that at this time. And I think I saw that everybody's meeting before our next meeting.
Yeah.
So we should have the chairs expect to report back to us. And I'll have that on the agenda every meeting now as just a quick update from subcommittees.
could I make a request? I can do it for you, Eric, but I cannot make the 9th meeting. I have a very long scheduled family school trip, and I can't not do that. I'm a grandfather. So can we change that to a week later? I would be most appreciative.
16th,
Yes?
does that fall on the, that's not the vacation?
It's the Thursday before vacation.
Thursday before vacation.
Yeah.
Could we please, I'd love to do that. I don't want you to have a meeting without me.
On the 16th?
Is that okay? Can we do it?
Fine with me.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll see you all on the 16th.
Thank you.